Sorry, I did have to take my boots off. These are my favorite boots in the whole world, but I actually broke them a month ago when I got a little too silly at a winery, and I hot glued them, and the hot glue just came undone. So I'm gonna do this barefoot. Honestly, it's a great intro for my speech. I got my finger stuck in a fidget toy yesterday, so that's who's giving this speech. All right, so before we jump into it, quick show of hands. Who here likes Smarties, the candy? Okay, a lot of us. Okay, who here does not like Smarties, the candy? Okay, cool, thank you for participating. Unfortunately, a lot of you are wrong. I won't say who though, I don't want to yuck anyone's yum or anything. But anyways, I'm in the cafeteria a few months ago and this kid comes up to me and he gives me a Smartie. And since they taste like a chalky medicine to me, I went to go pawn it off on a fourth grader. So I chose this table in particular because I'm just 2 or 3 weeks into my service term, and I've come to know the fourth graders the best. They're all very smart and very vocal. So I say to them, hey, whoever gets this question right wins this Smartie. And I ask them, what country is home to the tallest mountain in the world? And they're thinking, they're deliberating, they're like, okay, I think it's Mount Everest. Where's Mount Everest? And I'm starting to think that maybe I've stumped them when I see someone raise a very polite little hand. We'll call him Simon. It's not his actual name, but I don't want the paparazzi coming after him or anything, so we'll go with Simon. Never heard Simon speak before, okay? Super quiet kid, so I'm excited. He's participating, so I call on him. And he goes, Mount Everest is located on the China-Nepal border. Wow. Okay, I'm sorry, who are you again? Okay. Because I was just going to say the Nepal part. I actually didn't even know the China part. But when the kid who's never spoken up in class before raises his hand to answer a question, you can probably assume it's because he knows he's right. So I did. And I said correct, and I handed him the Smartie. You know what he did with it? Passed it to the kid next to him. You know why? Man of taste, right there. Anyways, so right afterwards, all the other kids at the table start going, oh man, of course Simon knows it. Simon knows everything. He's a human atlas. Ask him the state capitals. He knows all of them. Cool, awesome idea. Important context about me, don't know any of the state capitals, okay? Maybe one. But what I did know was that Simon for sure knew all the state capitals. So all I had to do was start rattling off states and answering correct after whatever he said. Because I'm a new teacher, I gotta look like I know what I'm talking about. So I do, we're looking good, we're getting a lot of oohs and ahs. He's smiling and blushing, and I leave this interaction thinking, you know what? I did something good today. I let this shy kid shine. I'm patting myself on the back. Spoiler alert, okay, read the situation all wrong. Show up to the cafeteria the next day. Second I walk in, Simon stands up, okay, and he points at me. He goes, you, come here. And he always does it like this with these 2 fingers. And I'm so confused, right? I'm like, who is he talking to? And I'm like, this kid's been radio silent for weeks, and all of a sudden he's like summoning me to his lair. What's going on? So I get there, he's sitting alone, he asked me to sit. And he goes, today I quiz you. Yeah, man, I probably audibly gulped, okay? He clearly saw right through me the other day. I didn't know a thing about geography, and I was not about to prove him wrong, okay? Anyway, so he asked me the capital of France, okay? So I say Paris, and then quit immediately, go to leave, right? Quit while I'm ahead. But then I'm like, okay, you know what, actually, Mr. Atlas, how about I quiz you a little bit more? So I asked him the capital of India, capital of Cuba, and the capital of Iceland. And as I'm racking my brain to think of any other country capital I know, he goes, all right. Starts waving his hands at me like this. He goes, how about you pull out your phone, click on maps, scroll over to Africa. Find some country you've never even heard of before. 9-year-old said this to me. Okay, kid's not tall enough to ride a roller coaster, but in this moment, he was the coolest person I ever knew. So I pull out my phone, scroll over. I go, okay, Lesotho. He very politely corrects my pronunciation. He goes, Lesotho is a small landlocked country in the south of Africa. Its capital is Maseru, and its population is 2.2 million. You ever hear somebody say something so nerdy that it actually becomes cool? You know what I'm saying? It's like a circle. Once you get deep enough into nerd territory, it becomes cool again. like anime, kind of like that, and D&D, it's coming back. Anyways, one day he asked me, what country produces the most uranium? And I get all excited. I'm like, I think I know this one. He goes, it's in Central Asia. It's one of the stands. And I'm like, oh, actually, I don't know it. What is it? He goes, it's Kazakhstan. But what were you thinking? And I said, oh, I was thinking of the country that produces the most cobalt. And I'm getting all excited, thinking I'm about to teach him something. He goes, oh, yes, the DRC, as if he's on like a nickname basis with this country. And he goes, yeah, they actually produce the least uranium of any country. Who knows that? This kid is 9 years old. When I was 9, I was busy memorizing the names of my stuffed animals so I didn't hurt their feelings, not the major exports of foreign countries. But the kid's crazy. He reads those giant atlas books in the school libraries that I kind of thought were just decoration. They have pages in them, and he flips through them. He reads them. I saw the librarian go up to him a few days ago and say, hey, Simon, you learning anything new? And he goes, nope. Keeps reading. He's read it before, he'll read it again. So Simon and I, we're pretty good buds now. We play Global and Wordle and Flaggle at lunch every other day, which are all geography spin-offs of Wordle, for those who don't know. This might be gibberish to a lot of you. But from our conversations, I've compiled this list of everything that Simon verifiably knows, okay? I'm gonna read it. All the states and their capitals. All the countries and their capitals, every president in U.S. history and the age in which they died, the population of every country, the name and age of the leader of every country, the name and age of the previous leader of almost every country and when they died, the major exports of most countries, the flags of every country and territory, most countries' GDP, and the size of almost every country's military. This is just what I know he knows. Okay, so I'm sure there's more. So when I was thinking about how I would wrap up this speech, I had a few ideas in mind, most of which would lead to the main takeaway that getting to know a kid and building up their confidence will help them come out of their shell, which I certainly think I did for Simon. But to be honest, I'm pretty sure he's impacted my life more than I've impacted his. I think there's often this narrative of a kid who meets a teacher and says, I want to be just like you one day. But less often do we hear about a teacher who meets a kid and says, I want to be more like you one day. Well, this is one of those stories. I go to school every day and I come home having learned at least one new thing thanks to Simon. And I know you guys learn from your kids too, whether it's in a really tangible way like this or in a more abstract way. But I don't think that's something we give them enough credit for. So I decided to tell Simon the other day that I'd be doing this speech. And I asked him, I said, what advice would you have for someone who wanted to become a geography whiz like you? What's your secret? And he looked at me, and I'll never forget what he said. He looked at me, and he goes, stay away from those disgusting Smarties. They rot your brain. They're no good. Never eat them again. Okay, I'm kidding. He didn't say that. That was me. I don't know why I have this vendetta against Smarties. I should probably work it out in therapy or something. No, what he actually said, which I think is actually even better, is he's like, you're talking to a whole room? I was like, yeah. And he goes, tell them I have secretive DNA. It's a 9-year-old, after all. But to be fair, I asked a dumb question. There obviously is no secret. If I wanted to know that much about anything, I would just have to take the time to learn it. Which is now why I go home and I make my boyfriend quiz me on country capitals every night, so I can keep up with the 9-year-old with a photographic memory. So I'd just like to thank Simon and all the other kids I work with for reminding me that I can be both a teacher and a student at the same time. And I look forward to being both for the rest of my life. Thank you.